And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
Yes, I'm wearing the Philadelphia Phillies gear because the Phils knock off the Atlanta Braves and move on to the National League Championship Series later this week. But bluntly, I kind of hesitated to do it today because there are much more important and serious things for us to talk about. Because since we last spoke last Saturday, the world and we have witnessed the horrific, satanic, barbaric attacks on the people and nation of Israel by Hamas. This was the most Jews killed in a single day since Auschwitz. Think about that. And this is Hamas, which is a terrorist state sponsored in large part by Iran, a state sponsor of terrorism. And we've watched the reaction roll in from around the world and from here within our own shores. And bluntly, most of it has been really good. A lot of Democrats who we don't agree with on other issues have been as forceful as those of us from the conservative side in not only condemning Hamas, but saying that Israel not only has the right to defend itself, but the right to strike back and utterly decimate and destroy Hamas for all it has done and all it pretends to be. Because Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel, half a century ago, put it best. She said, the battle with the Palestinians has never been and will never be about territory or land or anything concrete. She boiled it down to this very simple fundamental truth. It is about the right of the state of Israel to merely exist. Hamas and the Palestinian terrorists have never accepted that. They want to destroy Israel. They want to wipe it off the face of the earth. And the only response to that is to destroy Hamas. This proportional response nonsense that we often go through isn't something in the Israeli DNA. And I've got here from one of the many artifacts that we have at Quantum Communications, a bayonet, which was owned by Moshe Dayan, the eye-patched Minister of Defense of Israel during the Six-Day War, one of my heroes, and I just thought you'd like to see that for a minute as we continue the discussion and see the really awful, nauseating response from American college campuses and the refusal of the administration of some of those colleges to absolutely condemn what some of those student groups are saying about what's going on there right now. I mean, we hear this just horrific screed of anti-Semitism dripping from the tongues of some of these young people who tell us, oh, well, what you saw was just Israeli propaganda. Seriously? I mean, the Hamas terrorists were broadcasting to the world what they had done. They were proud of it. But we see Americans refusing to accept that. I mean, it's much in the vein of Holocaust deniers that we now see this happening here. But thank God the resolve of Israel is strong. The United States is standing up with them. The Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, the most sophisticated aircraft carrier in the world, is now there to bolster what's going on. And we hope and we pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the destruction of Hamas. And to just add a quick political note to all of that, please tell me one Republican, one, who has stood up and said Hamas was in the right. And yet we have significant numbers of Democrats doing exactly that. Not just Rashid Tlaib and Omar and a couple of these really nutty congresswomen who incidentally have gay pride flags next to the Palestinian flag outside the one office. Think about what the Palestinian state does with people who exercise gay sexual activity. But that's a story for another day. But here within the borders of the United States, there are still on the far left fringe of the Democrat Party, and I want to identify it as that because most Democrats don't buy that crap, but on the far left fringe are folks who are in lockstep with the anti-Semitism and horrific acts of Hamas and the Palestinians there in the Middle East. And they should be roundly condemned and forced out of mainstream political thought. And in the midst of all of this, the House of Representatives still doesn't have a speaker. And so, in many respects, we're frozen from acting as fully and comprehensively as we could in all this. And you'll hear folks say, oh, well, let's be very, very clear. The Democrat Party was the gigantic block of votes to remove Kevin McCarthy. There were 8 Republicans who joined them in order to accomplish that. They had no plan, though, for how to proceed once he was removed from office. And so, as a result, the Congress of the United States, the House in particular, is hamstrung and completely unable to fulfill its constitutional responsibilities and its moral responsibilities right now. This week, Stephen Scalise was nominated by his caucus to be the next speaker. That fell apart because he apparently couldn't muster enough votes from within the Republican ranks to prevail on a floor vote, and he didn't want to see happen again what occurred in January. Let's just leave it at this. The Republicans need to act like a party. The Democrats always do. They stick together through thick and thin, no matter how many internal divisions and how much strife they have as a party, they somehow manage to stick together. You know, Will Rogers once said, "I'm not a member of an organized political party, I'm a Democrat," but you know, that is belied by the fact that they do stick together. You know, I once heard that Democrats are like cats in the night. You listen to them and you're sure that they're tearing each other's eyes out, when in point of fact, they're just making more Democrats. And from those serious thoughts to something less sublime, but important to many of us, the Phillies march on. The first team in Major League history to take out a team in consecutive years that had won 100 games in each season. The Atlanta Braves, the first team ever to be back-to-back 100-game winners and yet lose to the exact same team in the playoffs. And when you think about it, the Diamondbacks and the Phillies are advancing to the NLCS. They won collectively 24 games over 500 this year, whereas the Dodgers and the Braves, both of whom will be watching on television or from the golf course, prevailed in 74 more contests than they lost. That tells you a lot. And what's so great about the Phillies, you know, the home run records all over the place. Castellanos hitting two homer games back to back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Harper doing what he did, but the entire team being part of that victory. And you saw bench players, quote unquote role players, saying, "My job is simply to do whatever will help the team win." You saw that in multiple players. You don't see that at any level of sports much anymore, but teamwork is always what prevails and what wins. And that team in Philadelphia is truly a team. So let's hope that they continue to roll, because for now, saying a prayer for the peace of Jerusalem, the people of Israel, and the destruction of Hamas, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.